Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled People Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. Karen coworker demands I date her loser son. After that, I'll get the manager. And after that, am I the jerk for taking an Uber to a wedding so I wouldn't be late? Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen doesn't get to make anyone date her loser son. Never date a loser, especially if he's got a giant head and little beady orange eyes. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. My Karen coworker demands I date her loser son. I, 20 female, just started working at a new job a few weeks ago. Everything has been smooth sailing with my coworkers. They're all fun and cool people until yesterday. For a little context before I get into it, my assistant manager, Sherry, who's 45, has a son, Travis, who's 19. When I first started working and I met her, the topic of relationships came up, and she asked if I was single. I told her yes. I got out of a long-term relationship this past July, and I'm thinking about jumping back into the dating pool. She told me her son was around my age, and that we would probably like each other, and asked if I'd be interested. I told her to let me think about it, and I'd get back to her. That was about 6 weeks ago. A couple weeks ago, I decided that going on a couple first dates or outings with new people couldn't be too bad of an idea. So I told Sherry to let Travis know I was interested if he wanted to meet for coffee or something and test the waters, but that I probably wouldn't be free until just after the new year because I'm busy with work and personal and family stuff. She said that sounded fine, and then yesterday happened. Sherry was talking in the back room with two of my other coworkers who are also moms about their kids. At some point, they were making jokes about spoiling their kids, and Sherry said Travis doesn't even make himself a sandwich, just goes into the kitchen and sits there and pouts because he knows mama will come do it for him. I rarely use this term, but I absolutely felt icked out by that. I asked her if she was being serious, and she laughed and said yes, he's just a mama's boy. As we were leaving later, I pulled her aside and told her that I wasn't interested in going out with her son anymore. After she pressed me about why several times, I admitted that the sandwich thing really rubbed me the wrong way and that I would never go out with a man who seems so dependent or unwilling to do things himself. Sherry got upset and told me I'm not a mom and don't know what I'm talking about, and that surely I expect my parents to still do things for me, and stormed off. I'm getting off my break here in a minute, and she hasn't spoken to me all day, and I'm wondering if I'm in the wrong here. Was I the jerk? Edit. Thank you to everyone so far who has provided their feedback. I just got home from work a few minutes ago, and I've been trying to read through all of the comments and answer any questions or provide any needed clarification. I completely agree with all of you that said I shouldn't have agreed in the first place. That was absolutely my mistake, and I was entirely naive about how things would play out. It seemed totally innocent, and I'm very much used to the older women in my life trying to set me up with their sons. It's not something I've had to confront the past 4 years because I was able to say that I'm taken. But now that I'm single and open to trying to meet new people again, it's not as easy to navigate. I guess I didn't think much of it since I haven't dated anyone new since I was 16, and I still look at these new date situations like I'm 16. Either way, I'm not mixing work with personal like that ever again. I've learned my lesson. Not the jerk. I guess she's sick of making his sandwiches and is hoping you'll take over that role. It was grossly inappropriate of her to make the suggestion in the first place, in my opinion. My only criticism is that you should have said no from the beginning to situations like this. If you had gone on the date and found him lacking, then I'm sure a colleague would have reacted the same way, not well. How dare anyone not love her precious baby boy? Not the jerk. Not the jerk. But the next time, tell the people who want to make you a blind date with a friend or a relative, thanks, but I don't mix work with personal. Or, thanks, but if things don't work out, I don't want to put you in that uncomfortable position. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or Sherry? Please let us know. Always remember that no is a complete sentence. You're not obligated to explain yourself to these stupid people who try to push you into doing crap you don't want to do. And if you ask them to stop and they keep harassing you, that's what HR is for. I'll get the manager. Way back in the year 2000, I worked at a big box store with the yellow tag logo. I had been there for 18 months as a cashier. We recently got a new operations manager who came from computer sales and didn't really know the registers that well. This happened during his first week as manager. Me. Okay, sir, that will be this much. Customer. Fine, here. Tosses card onto the counter. Card declined. Me. Sorry, sir, your card declined. I can run it again, or we can try another card if you'd like. Customer. Run it again. I know there's over $1,000 on that card. It should work. I swipe the card again, and it's declined. Me. Sorry, sir, it's been declined again. Customer. It has to work. Is there anything else you can do to approve it? I can try to run it manually, but that will only help if your magnet strip is damaged. Try that then. I manually enter the details, and it's declined. There must be some way to force or bypass that. I know there's money on that card. Me. I'm sorry, sir. If it's declined by the card company, there's nothing I can do. This is BS. I know there's money on that card. Get your manager, now. Me. Okay, sir. Just a moment. Manager approaches and stands behind the counter next to me. Manager. Hello, sir. How can I help you? Your employee keeps declining my card, and I know there's plenty of money on it. You need to override it. Manager attempts to run the card, declined again. Manager. Sorry, sir. It was declined. I know that. You need to override it so I can take my stuff and go home. Manager turns 90 degrees to face me. Manager. It declined. Is there anything we can do to override it? Me. No, sir. That decline is from the card company. There's nothing else that we can do. Manager turns 90 degrees back to the angry customer. I'm sorry, sir. I've spoke with one of our experts, and he informs me that there's nothing else we can do with this card. Would you like to sign up for our card and save 10% on your purchases today? Customer angrily stomps out of the store. Am I the jerk for taking an Uber to a wedding so I wouldn't be late? My sister got married last weekend. I flew into town and my parents insisted that I stay with them instead of a hotel like I wanted. My parents are consistently late for everything. I think it's a Latin thing. I hate being late. I think it's disrespectful. The wedding was at 2:30. My folks live about half an hour from the church. Noon rolls up and my folks aren't even getting ready yet. They're adults and I am over dealing with them. I get ready, I send for an Uber, and I'm at the church at 2 o'clock. I check in with my sister. She asks me if I had any problems getting my parents to church. I told her that I came by myself. She blew up on me and said that I was responsible for getting them there on time. Well, nobody asked me to do that. I didn't even want to stay there. So now everyone starts calling my parents. They're getting ready. They were about 35 minutes late. The service was shortened because there was another wedding later that day. Everyone's still mad at me for not getting my parents there on time. My aunt said that I'm a jerk for messing up the timing of the wedding. My mom says it's my fault for not reminding them to get ready. Am I the only one who thinks adults should be able to be on time for their own kid's wedding without help? Not the jerk. If they need to be reminded to get ready for their daughter's wedding, they need live-in caretakers. Unless you were specifically asked to get them to the church, that's not your job. If your sister truly thinks you messed up the wedding by being on time, I think it's a good time for some space between you and your family. Not the jerk. This sounds like a classic missing stairs situation where nobody wants to yell at the problem person directly because that person is never going to change. So they instead yell at everyone else for not managing around the problem person. You now know going forward never to stay with your parents again or be put in a position where you could be seen as responsible for them. This is the kind of thing that's easy to say on the internet and less realistic to do in real life. But I kind of wish your sister had just started the wedding on time and locked your parents' lazy selves out of the church. Am I the jerk for not sharing ownership of my dream car with my boyfriend? I entered my current relationship with a car that I purchased while I was in college. At the time, my boyfriend did not have a driver's license or vehicle of his own. For a year, I pushed him to get his license, offered to teach him in the little banger that I had, even drove him to the DMV and bought the book for his G and M license. He neglected to even open them. After getting tired of paying for repairs on this car, a 2008 Yaris, I decided to go to the dealer and trade it in for a newer car, a 2016 Juke. Again, I offered to teach him how to drive and pushed him to take the test for his G1. After almost a year of owning the new car, he finally went and got the G1, and I started giving him driving lessons. But after a year, I got a job making far more money than I had been, and had also saved multiple years worth of tax returns to be able to put a down payment on the car of my dreams, a 2-door Wrangler for off-roading. My boyfriend is atrocious with money, has been bankrupt in the past, overspent on money to the point of me needing to cover 100% of the bills, often leaving me to make the choice between making a car payment or pay for groceries. We had a plan to purchase him a car with a loan he was approved for, but in his time off, he spent all $15,000 of it. Frustrated, I drove to a Jeep dealer and traded the Juke for a Wrangler, making myself the sole owner of the vehicle, not wanting to have his irresponsibility affect my credit any longer. He blew up, saying that the Juke was his and it was the car he was supposed to learn to drive in. And I was supposed to keep it and keep making payments on it so he could have a car too. Angry, I told him he wasn't allowed to drive the Wrangler, mostly because he is very neglectful on the road, and I had upgraded to steel front and rear bumpers and didn't want to hurt someone. I made him borrow a friend's accent to learn and get his G2. I feel like the jerk for not including him on the purchase or allowing him to use it when we are in a relationship, but felt my financial responsibility deserved to be rewarded and protected. You need to dump him. He's entitled, completely untrustworthy with money, mooching off of you shamelessly, and too incompetent to drive. Not the jerk, but why are you still with him? Can you seriously see a future with this person? Not the jerk, but girl, sharing ownership of the Wrangler is the least of your problems. To sum up, your boyfriend is unable to accomplish the basics, such as getting his license, unless pushed and prodded and promised to benefit from a free car to drive. Capable of blowing $15,000 on random shopping and generally atrocious with money. Entitled and already seeing your earnings as his car. Completely unconcerned with being a fully supported trophy boyfriend while you pay 100% of his bills. He already went through a bankruptcy and didn't learn anything. Do you want to spell out what the future holds for you? Don't be a jerk to yourself. Honey, why are you out here trying to build a boo? Stop. He is irresponsible, has no drive or ambition, can't motivate himself to do anything, and to top it all off, he's broke. What are you doing? Listen, I can understand supporting your man, but you gotta have something to work with. It's like when you buy a fixer-upper house. You know you gotta put in the work, but you do it because the house has good bones. Now take a step back and look at your man. Does he have good bones? Girl, take your car, take your money, and take your sanity and leave him. My judgment, not the jerk for the car, but you're the jerk if you keep investing in this absolute waste man. Not the jerk. But where are you girls at who will give guys like this a chance? I have a job, my own place, my own car. I've been told I look decent and that I'm funny. But for some reason, every girl I try to go out with just turns me down. They say they just want to be friends or see me as a brother. Meanwhile, you've got losers like this guy who have no problem getting a girlfriend. I just don't get it. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay for my son's dental surgery? I'm divorced from my son's mom, and she took the easy way out on the financial arrangements. Basically, I got stuck paying things that are certain, like our son's private school and extracurricular activities, where she's responsible for their health insurance and medical bills and their nanny. She doesn't pay much for coverage, and our sons don't need medical care. Until now. Our 8-year-old super cute son has a tooth growing from the roof of his mouth, and it needs to be removed quickly. It's not a simple procedure, but he needs to be put under anesthesia, and we have to go to a pediatric oral surgeon. We eventually found a very good pediatric oral surgeon, and it's going to come out to be $3,000. It cost that much because dental insurance doesn't cover much, and an anesthesiologist is expensive. It had to be paid in half for an appointment and half the day of the appointment. My ex asked me if I was going half. I said no. This bill is your problem, not mine. This is what you wanted, remember? You spent the last few years with so little childcare expenses that you got used to it. She went on to say that she doesn't have that kind of cash laying around, and it doesn't make sense to put it on a credit card with interest rates. I told her to go sell blood. I don't care. And yes, I actually budget my money and could pay all of it, and it wouldn't be that big of a deal. She ended up having to take a loan from her credit union to pay for the surgery. Our son was always going to get his surgery, and there was no delay. Edit. Removing the tooth quickly had more to do with trying to get the procedure done before the holidays than medical necessity. Everyone sucks here. Your wife for trying to renege on the agreement, and you for sounding more interested in sticking it to her than your son's welfare. I see the statement that his care was never in question and presume that you would have stepped up and paid if it really had been an issue, so partial credit. But for the sake of your kids, you two need to start acting like co-parents instead of squabbling toddlers. I was this kid once, and believe me, he knows about the squabbling and the fact that his dad said what he did and so on, and it's making him feel bad. Way to upset a kid that has to go through a scary procedure. OP, you're right about the money, but you gotta take a deep breath and lose the vitriol. There's no way it's not affecting your super cute son. Please, don't put him through years of this. Not the jerk for holding your wife to her side of the bargain. When you didn't pick up the slack for her, she found a way to do it herself. That's fine. You do kind of sound like a jerk though, to be honest, just like petty and bitter. You two should probably have a conversation about big, unexpected expenses. $3,000 isn't too bad from what your financial situations sound like, but if it were $30,000 or some other amount, neither of you could have expected to pay alone without incurring a significant hardship. You should have a plan right now. Not the jerk. Everyone on here saying you are living in a dreamland. If you took their advice, your ex would stick you with everything. The bottom line is she figured it out, and it got done. If you had said he'd never had the surgery, then you would be the jerk. But sticking to your agreement and not wavering just because it's inconvenient for her is not bad. It's life. You're the jerk and behaving like a jerk to boot. Your son needs medical attention and you can help him, and you're refusing to because you hold a grudge against his mother, who you once loved enough to marry and have kids with. It's petty and cruel of you to behave this way. Don't let your bad feelings cloud your better judgment. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his ex? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for asking a friend to split the cost of a meal that he ate a significant portion of? My friend and I went to dinner over the weekend, but still have not settled this issue, so we decided to take it to Reddit to see what you all think. Usually when we go out together, we each only pay for what we order. That way, if someone wants a more expensive dinner or to have a few drinks, the other person isn't stuck paying their bill. Oftentimes when I go out to eat, I will save about half my meal so I can have an easy lunch or dinner the following day. This past weekend, we went to a new restaurant and we were excited to try what the place had to offer. So when my friend asked if he could try some of my meal, I willingly obliged. He then proceeded to eat the majority of what was left on my plate, which was almost half of the entire meal. When the check came, I asked him to contribute some money to my meal since he had eaten such a large portion of it and made it so there was no longer enough to make a meal out of it. He claimed that since we had always agreed to pay for what we ordered, he shouldn't have to pay for extra since he wasn't the one that ordered the meal, and I had willingly let him try it. I then explained that I had expected him to take a bite or two, not eat a meal's worth of food on top of eating his own entire meal. He claimed I should have specified that he could only have a bite or two if that was all that I was willing to share. I understand that we had an agreement to pay for what we ordered, but I think it's kind of a jerk move to eat what was essentially an entire meal of someone else's and then expect them to pay for it. So what do you think, Reddit? Am I the jerk? Edit. Since this has already come up a few times, I wasn't paying attention to how much he was eating off my plate. At this point, he had already finished his entire meal, so I didn't expect him to have enough room to eat another half a meal. On the flip side, he knows that I often split my meals to take home the extra for the next day, and even admitted as much during the conversation about the bill. I also ended up paying for everything I ordered. Edit 2. It should be noted that he admitted to knowing that I intended on bringing leftovers home for later, and that was why he didn't polish it off completely. I had already asked for a to-go box for the food by the time he asked to try it, and we were simply waiting on the box and the bill. Not the jerk. Was a jerk move on his part. Time to accept his judgment and pay for the next meal. Not the jerk. There's a difference between asking, "Can I try some?" versus, "Can I have the rest of that?" I doubt you'll get your money, but I would never let this person try some of my food again. My principal tried to get me fired, so I got her fired from the district. I was in my mid-20s, fresh out of grad school and ready to start my teaching career. I got a job at a Title I elementary school near my home teaching art, and I was super excited that I could walk to work. However, I was so far into La La Land that I didn't notice any of the warning signs. Warning sign number 1. It was a week before school started, and I had called and emailed the school office staff and my principal to ask about getting my keys and a badge so I can start seeing what I needed to do to get ready for the school year. No response and no answer from either. So I called the district office and asked when and where I could pick up my keys and badge. 2 days before school starts, I get an email from my admin that I should have been more patient and not have contacted the main office about my keys and a badge. I finally got everything and was able to get into my room and was horrified with how much I had to get done. Apparently, they had used my room as storage, so it was loaded with tables and desks stacked on top of each other, 8 filing cabinets, and well over 100 chairs stacked all around the room. I managed to clean out the space with help from my awesome custodian. Shout out to all custodians who are the secret backbones in helping teachers get ready for the school year. Hurdle number 1 finished. Warning sign number 2. It's now the day of classes starting, and I haven't been informed of what the schedules are, as in which days I see certain classes and when. So I email my principal again, asking what the schedule looks like and if there is a digital document that I can print out. I get an email back a few minutes later telling me to stop pressuring and bullying her. I replied, sorry if I was making her feel that way, but it would be nice to know what classes I had and when. This leads to warning sign number 3. It's 8:10 a.m., not 10 minutes after school started, and I finally get my schedule, only to find out that I have 2 classes at the same time. Note, my school isn't huge, but we still had 14 classes serving kinder through 6th graders, so I was having at least 46 kids in one classroom by myself. Moreover, I had 7 45-minute periods a day and saw every class every day of the week, with only a 30-minute lunch. My lunch was when I was on lunch duty. I asked my principal if there was any way we could adjust the schedule so I had time to plan and get the classroom ready for the next class and wouldn't lose instruction time getting things ready as the new class was coming in. I got yelled at by her with a class waiting outside saying it was my first year teaching and I didn't know what I needed and needed to just deal with it. Well, I decided not to just deal with it, and I read the teacher's contract for the district. Come to find out, we had a section about classroom size. It stipulated that if you had a class over 30 students, you get to have an educational assistant to help you with the class. I brought this up with my principal after a month and a half of struggling and was, you guessed it, denied and told that there was no money in the budget and I would have to make do without it or quit. Mind you, I am stubborn and determined to make things work with what little I have, but things were rough. In order to prep and plan everything for the next day, make meaningful grades, keep up with referrals, and keep in contact with families, I was having to be at the school from 6 a.m. when the morning custodian arrived till 9 p.m. when the night janitor was leaving on weekdays, and then also use my weekend time to continue to plan and grade. When it came time for my first teacher evaluation, I was dreading it. However, I got all satisfactory marks from my principal. I was shocked. Little did I know this was a plan she had all along. A few more weeks pass, and I've had it. I talk with our union about the double classes and say it's not sustainable, and a classroom my size can't safely fit more than 30 students, let alone 46 students, and they said they would handle it. And another few weeks go by and nothing. It's now the week of Thanksgiving and conferences are over, and I get to not worry about anything for 2 days. So I decided to go to a potluck dinner with some old friends of mine. So here's the best part, and maybe the part that saved my career and even maybe my sanity. I was talking with an old acquaintance and his new husband about what teaching job I landed and how the school year was going. I let it slip that even though my students were amazing and had such creative minds, it's frustrating to me that I don't have the time to give to them that they deserve, and with 2 classes at once, it's hard to get around to everyone in the class in just 45 minutes. I noticed the husband raise his eyebrow and ask me what school I worked at, so I told him, what harm could it do? Ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between, little did I know I was talking with my principal supervisor. I found out the next Monday when my admin stormed into my room at 8:05 to scream and yell at me, threatening to fire me and make sure I never work in education again. I was shocked and confused at the time. However, later that week at our staff meeting, we talk about a change in the schedule and how only 1 class would be in my class at a time for an hour now, and I would only see them twice a week instead of all 5 days. It was magical. The kids were happier. I was calmed, was able to help each individual student if they needed it, and was able to plan enough throughout the day so I could leave at 4 p.m. Sad to say, my happiness didn't last forever. I noticed my principal stalking my room and coming in non-stop to observe me. It was awkward. I also had a few of my very extroverted students come in quiet and unable to focus on work. But when I asked them if everything was okay, they would burst into tears and say, "I don't want you to go." Being confused, my response was always, "Oh, don't worry, I have absolutely no intentions of going anywhere. You are all the best students a teacher could ever ask for," which would cheer them up for a while, but then they would come in next week be upset again. It all clicked when the day before we left for Christmas break, my principal came into my room with one of her minions, who was our building union representative, to tell me I was being put on a teacher support plan. This plan was to evaluate whether or not my contract with the district would be up for renewal at the end of the school year. I was shocked, and my union rep just laughed and walked away giggling with our admin. I felt sick and unable to feel any emotion. It wasn't until I got home and read what this plan detailed was I seen red. I had hit my breaking point. This is when I started to formulate a plan of revenge. Some things to note. Our principal liked to come into school whenever they felt like it. She would be anywhere from 7:45 a.m., our actual contract hours, to as late as 9:30 a.m. She once showed up at noon without telling anyone. I also knew that she had kept renewing a certain after-school care contractor that wasn't free to families, but they got money from district to offer it for free. I also knew that this person running the after-school care was dating and living with our principal. So during winter break, my acquaintance and his husband called and asked if I was free to get drinks over the holidays. I love a good cocktail, and I needed one. When we met up, I wanted to talk about anything other than school stuff. I just wanted to keep my mind off of school drama. But the new husband brought up if things were better after he had talked about the double classes. That was when I found out that he was her boss. I asked, "What do you mean? You talked to my principal? How do you know her?" New husband, "Oh, you didn't know? I'm the supervising administrator for that cohort of schools." My jaw dropped and I started to hyperventilate. The husband was startled and asked what was wrong. So I told him. I told him everything. How she yelled and threatened to get me fired, how she put me on this support plan, and how she just kept observing my class without notifying me. His face went from a concerned look to surprised Pikachu face to red with anger. He told me, "I really always had a bad vibe from her, and always wondered why there were always so many new teachers at that school every year. What else can you tell me about what's going on?" I hesitated to tell him everything, but my acquaintance told me not to worry. He has seen this look before and that he was on my side. So I told him everything. They both just sat there awestruck, unable to speak about what they were hearing. Anyway, after break is over, I'm dreading coming back to my class, but I don't want to miss seeing my students, so I push on. I'm walking in the hall to my mailbox and I see a few of my students that had cried and told me that they didn't want me to leave. They ran up and gave me the biggest, longest hug ever, saying, "You're here, you're here." Me, "Of course I am. I wouldn't leave the best students ever, now would I?" Students, "But principal said that you were going to leave us because you didn't want to be here, and we should give you trouble before you left." Me, trying to hold my rage. "Oh, maybe she's talking about how I was leaving to visit family over the break. No need to worry, I'm still here." Yes, y'all, this wretched person tried to purposely make kids misbehave in my class to write me up for not having good rapport with my students. I was beyond livid. So next time I have class with that student, I asked them if they could make a comic book out of the conversation they had with my principal when she told them that I was leaving, and make an ending he wanted. Phase 1 started. Phase 2. I contacted my boss's boss and told him, per my contract, I wanted another admin to accompany my principal's teacher support observations, and I wanted it to be him. He said absolutely, but not to tell my principal just yet. The first day of my observation comes, and she walks in without a notebook or anything to take any sort of notes, looking proud of herself like she's about to get away with firing me. She is shocked and confused when her boss walks in with a laptop and sits next to her and starts typing notes about how I'm doing. She stumbles around and comes to ask me for a notepad to take notes, and I tell her I don't have an extra notepad, but I do have some poster paper. We were making a movie poster of a movie we would star in to go with our comic books, and that I hope you can be better prepared next observation as to not disrupt my class and take time away from their institutional time. Her boss just smirked. Phase 3. I was now calling my new best friend, her boss's boss, whenever she was late getting to school, and he would do a random stop by if he was close. So he was able to document that she was not showing up to work on time and not submitted the paperwork to have it be taken out of her leave minutes. Overall, we get her at least 2 times a week for a solid month. I think he even asked someone from HR to come to our school to see for herself at 9 a.m. and she still wasn't even there. Now time for phase 4, which was my favorite one, getting the parents on board. I first started talking to parents that seemed to always be late picking up their students. I would chat about it, and they said it was hard to get there on time and they often had to leave early. And when I told them about our aftercare, they would tell me that it cost too much for them. However, I would inform them that since we are a Title I school, that after-school care was free and paid for by the district, and gave her a nifty flyer I made up with the website to fill out the forms and which ones to fill out. This made word spread around to parents paying the contractors directly that it was supposed to be free. And boy, was that a fun PTA meeting to go to. I also made sure the principal knew it was me that informed the parents about that free after-school care program. After this, there were countless investigations at our school, with head administration from the central office stopping by our school, auditors, and our union finally got involved and tried to play the hero/victims of this incident. The outcome. The second half of the year was very chill. My new best friend made sure that my teacher support plan was taken off my teaching record, and my principal was not allowed to do my second term evaluations, nor was she allowed to do any informal observations. The after-school care contractor was fired and taken over by one recommended by the district, and my students were making amazing strides in their posters and comics. At the end of the year, when we were getting our assignments, jobs for next year, my principal made one last attempt to get me to leave and told me our budget doesn't have the funds for an art teacher next year and that I might want to seek employment elsewhere. I laughed in her face and said, "Nice try. My position is paid for by the state bond and isn't affected by your budget from the district. If there isn't anything else, I'll be leaving now," and walked out. I could hear her slam her desk and start losing it as I closed the door. At the end of the year, I had my one student share his comic book about how the principal told him to give me trouble in class at our school's talent show, leaving the already ticked off parents more ticked that an adult would tell a kid to act in such a way. I even think she had a shoe thrown at her when she ran on stage to stop him from finishing the comic. To the surprise of no one, the last day of school, she announced on the intercoms after students had left that she would be resigning from our school to move to a different position where she was needed and that she would miss almost all of us. I came to find out after stalking her on LinkedIn 2 years later that she had to get a job out of the district an hour drive away to get another admin job, but only stayed for a year and then had to step down to teaching English at a different school in another district the next year. And for those of you wondering how my student's comic book ended, well, the art hero rallied the students against the angry principal to make her see the errors of her ways. But the angry principal could not become happy, so she left, and the power of happiness filled the school once again. Finn.
Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video.
Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.